Hi, this is Manjula Narayan, books editor, Hindustan Times, and today I have with me Shubha Mudgal.
Thank you so much.
And she's written this book, Looking for Miss Sargam, Stories of Music and Misadventure. And like I said, it's funny, but it's also tragic.
Yes, it is tragic because the situations are like that.
And as an insider, you've kind of like opened it out to all of us who might just be consumers of music. So how did you build, these characters? And some of them are, they're all musicians, and there's so much pathos in it.
Yes. Well, I think, the life of an artist anywhere in the world is one which is difficult. Also because all along you are trying to find your voice in practices and in systems that have been around for a long time, have had really, really eminent people with genius, path breakers, and then you come along with a keen, obsessive, compulsive passion to make music, and you are pitted against all this, these many centuries of music making and artistic endeavor, and there you are trying to say, I need to find my voice. So that's a difficult path to take in any case. Plus in India, I think, the arts are revered and all that, but as a profession and as a full-time life's commitment, I think societal and parental pressures really don't encourage that. I happen to be one of the very lucky people who was encouraged by my parents to take up music full time. And in fact, they told me at some point in as I was graduating, that look, if you do want to make music, you have to make a full-time commitment to it. Enough as a hobby and as a leisure activity. Now you need to actually commit yourself to music and learn. And so I think that kind of encouragement and unconditional encouragement, both from guardians as well as from society, I still run into people who ask me suspiciously, सिर्फ गाना करते हैं आप? So घर चल जाता है उससे?
नहीं, अभी मैं लिखती हूँ.
So there is this attitude of believing that the arts will not sustain you, and indeed it is difficult. So that's why I think I've tried to not be sort of crabby and grumpy about those situations and those struggles, but I can't deny that they exist.
But some of the stories are really heart-wrenching. Especially like I said, that Remati,
Manzoor
Remati story. I just put it down and I felt like, oh my God,
Yes. I think, I'm not from a family of musicians, because earlier it was only Khandani musicians who really had the legacy of music within their family. They taught people, and they were the custodians of this great hoary system of music. Then along came, changes in India. Music was taught in institutions, and first generation people like me became professional musicians, and not only became professional musicians, but also have received a fair amount of love and respect from listeners. And we have in many ways also displaced the Khandani musicians to some extent. Okay. Not that all Khandani musicians have been displaced. There are very eminent musicians from lineages, but at the same time there has been a nudging out. Okay. And that always creates disparities, inequalities, and therefore conflicts. And I think that in my writing of Manzoor Rahmati, I'm reminded constantly of one thing, that there was a time when the legacy of music was considered so important by the musicians themselves that they would not give their Khandani bandishes, their Khandani treasures to anybody easily. You either had to prove yourself or then perhaps serve them in many ways to get one composition. Manzoor is ready to give away many of his father's compositions, because today his legacy is going to be the Padma Award that he gets.
Yes.
So he doesn't worry about, and I think that's a tragic statement to have to make, but as a student of music, I can't be lying about the ecosystem.
And the ecosystem, which is like kind of revealed in your book, it also seems, it has these wonderful dedicated artists who are thinking about, their music constantly, but also these cutthroats and these, and these, like that Gupta and that
in the talent contest.
The talent contest.
Yes.
I mean, I found it like these are real people. You've created real people, so obviously they really actually exist. People like this, you know.
I mean, not all the people would exist as they are.
As
in
they
my
are, yeah,
book.
yeah.
Neither would all the situations. But yes, the today is very much a world of the visual image, and so whether it is about appearing on television or whether it's about appearing in a talent contest, there is a lot that rests on how you appear and not just how you sound.
Yes.
And so, a lot of students of classical music feel that they don't get the attention they deserve because most talent contests are for popular music. And therefore, there have been attempts to have reality shows or talent contests for classical music, not like the one I've written about, but at the same time, the desire to adapt to today's format and today's heavy importance given to the image.
Yes.
I think that is reflected in that story.
Okay. And also the importance of marketing, which is that Aman
Aman Bol.
Aman Bol.
Yes.
That's the first story in the collection, which I found hilarious actually. I didn't find it sad. That one I found very funny.
Yeah.
So and you've got that whole thing about the mass media and manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and how it's necessary. I mean, we are all asked, for example, I don't remember a time when I was asked to send anything more than my bio data, as it is called, and a photograph to be published in souvenirs that were distributed free or then perhaps sold at concerts of Hindustani classical music. Today, nobody asks you for your photograph or your bio data, or they may ask and it may just be taken off the net. But everybody asks you for a video clip.
Okay.
And so you're supposed to stare into the camera and say, "Hi, I'm so and so, and please come hear me at so and so place at so and so time." And it has to be done in a particular way. It has to be almost enticing, for I don't know how to do that. I mean, maybe I'm from another generation. I don't know how to do that, and I'm wondering, I've shot a video on my phone, but I'm looking remarkably self-conscious and silly. So I think today it's a different world, and we're all grappling with those changes in our different ways, and trying to evolve strategies, as musicians have always done, of how to appear to be yourself. And of course, I really love technology, and I value the ease of information, the way information flows today. But at the same time, I feel it's necessary for the classical musician to be themselves and not have to be somebody else who fits a Instagram format or a Facebook format.
Yes, the Facebook format.
Yeah.
Okay, so apart from the humor and the pathos that you've got into you've gotten both into the stories, I also thought that especially the story about the Puneri musician, the classical singer Asavri. Apte. Yeah, that one. I mean, you got that Puneri sort of slice of life. Without saying it really. Yeah, I could just picture this lady.
Yes, I mean, I've tried also to, and that was something that I didn't know whether the publisher would accept it, but fortunately they did. I've also inserted a lot of regional sort of language phrases, and I did, when I wrote the stories initially, I inserted those. Because I thought it brought a certain authenticity to the entire story. And then when I went back and read the stories and thought,
And she's got this real Maharashtrian rectitude, classical singer.
Yeah.
You got that.
Yeah. And so I thought, let me remove some of this. But it didn't work for me. And fortunately, Ravi Singh also accepted it. So I was lucky. But I really tried to, because I think, these are important centers for music making.
Yes.
Today, Maharashtra is a very important center for classical music. There are countless young people. I can't tell you what talent and what dedication there is. They're learning tabla, they're learning vocal music, sitar. I mean, it's really, you go to a concert and you'll have these little girls and boys sitting there and doing wah-wah. like a
Yeah.
or then, you know, just watching you and saying, okay, can she handle this or not, you know. I mean, there's a sense
Yeah.
of knowing what they're listening. There's a lot
Yes.
of listening that they've done too.
Yes.
And many decades of people who have been committed to listening to classical music. I felt that that needed to be preserved, and I felt that when I tell a story about a character from that milieu, perhaps it's important to bring in those aspects. You know, there's almost at times a slight righteousness in the way the music is, the studying of music. Oh, you know, you all of you are just, you're not serious about this stuff. It's we who've kept
Yes.
the torch. We've been the torch bearers. So there's almost a kind of slight righteous, slightly pompous feel to
Yeah.
this character that I've created.
Yes, but and her the way she kind of gets sort of flustered by that child with the American accent singing. I thought that was perfect. It was so real because I can imagine, I can imagine a serious classical musician getting stuck in a situation like that and having to say yes, yes, very good, and because she's.
Yes, I mean, these, of course, we're all approached by, parents who have their children, and it's very lovely at times, but at times you don't know what to do with it, because this, I mean, Asavari has just flown across continents, is tired, there's jet lag, and yet, the mother wants her to listen to her little baby,
Yeah.
and she's well taught, but the poor woman is just exhausted, she wants to sleep right now, and we've all faced these situations at times.
And that particular story also exposes, like we were talking about earlier, this whole thing about maybe not so much today, but earlier how musicians who went abroad,
Yes.
Kind of had to deal with a lot of things.
Oh yes, I mean the lure of being able to say that in your biodata that she has performed or he has performed in India and overseas is really big,
Yeah.
and it's a milestone in any artist's career. But at the same time, the manner in which a lot of the shows take place. Shows of popular music still are, sort of, they're too huge.
Yes.
So there's very fancy equipment being used. There are lights of all sorts, and there's a manager, and there's a makeup artist, and
There's a whole entourage.
Yeah. It's a huge. It's a almost an industry.
Yes.
But for classical music, it's primarily people who live outside of India, who have who want to do something for Indian art and culture. So they're doing day jobs and ferrying their children from school and art classes and cooking dinner and then running out and buying the groceries themselves. And in the midst of this, they're also hosting artists. So it's not easy for them, and it's not easy for the Indian artist who's traveling overseas also to be suddenly in the home of somebody you've never known.
Yes.
And then try and sort of give your best as an artist in small home concerts, etc., where perhaps the arrangements are made with the best of intentions but are not really professionally handled. So I think without being unkind to either of them, it's very sweet of the Mohites to extend their
Yes.
home for this
Yeah.
lady and try and take her out and show her the sights and give her an idea of fine dining, etc. And she's most reluctant and says, no,
Yeah.
I want my varan bhat.
Your charlatans are also quite colorful. How can you tell,
You learn actually, because nothing in your musical training, I mean, actually there is no training that a classical musician gets on how to deal with the business of music, whether it's in terms of contracts or agreements. There's just no way that we have any idea of what should be done and what we should not be signing or giving away. And it's very common for, let's say, record labels to ask us to sign contracts that were never meant for Indian music. So perhaps there was no malintention on their part as well, but we would know better. So, for example, I'm constantly asked to give away the rights in perpetuity in any format to be developed ever in the universe for Rag Yaman, for a composition in Rag Yaman. How on earth
How
can
can
I
you
give
do
it?
that?
Because Rag Yaman was never mine to give it away in
Yeah.
the first place. So I think, the wording of contracts is, of course, based on contracts that were made many years ago, and they continue.
Like that story about that record label,
Yes.
Guzzles.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, they were made, and nobody's bothered to look at them. And artists feel that ये तो हमारा काम नहीं, we're getting a chance to record with a big label. Why create trouble? Let's just sign. And so you end up doing things which were neither required of you, and were neither, there was no point in taking those rights. So nobody bothers about the fact that you were recording Yaman just round the corner for another label as well.
Oh.
So it's just an unnecessary proprietorial hold over what you're doing without even exercising that right.
Okay, and like I said, I like the naming of some of the characters, like Nak Tode. What?
I mean, it's a funny sounding name also.
It's like Durandar Bhattavadekar.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically something that made me, I thought there is this, there are these stories of how certain artists from certain areas would get to go more often.
Yes.
When there was a person, a minister or somebody influential from their part of the world.
Yes.
I mean, there have always been these, people cribbing about it.
Yeah.
And I just thought that
the Bengali lobby,
the
Tamil Brahmin lobby. Yeah, you got that out so well.
So I thought, let me just sort of put it in the passing as a marker of reality.
There are lots of markers of reality in this book.
And that was just a name that came to my mind.
Okay, but do you think these, like since you're an insider, you think people are going to read this within the industry, read it and say, oh, and have a different view of you? Because I did, I didn't think of you, like I said, after I read this, I remember telling my husband this morning, I'm kind of scared to meet her.
Please don't say that. I'm a funny person,
yes,
actually.
Yes, but you're very acute in your observations,
Well, I've been around a bit. Around for a bit and gone through both the highs and lows, and
Yes.
also had to learn some bitter lessons. And I think, it just comes from really my having lived a life with music. I've turned 60 this year, and it's been over 4 decades that I've actually been performing, and learning has been even longer. And I think I've watched too many things, so and they're all sort of in this hard disk right here, and some of them are in the hard disk, but they also create some really a lot of unrest in my heart. So I need to share that information in as many ways as I can, and I thought this was one of the ways I could try.
Okay, great. So this is a really good way. I mean, go out and get this book. I'm halfway through it, actually more than halfway through it, and there are points when you feel really sad, and it kind of gives you a view into the life of a performing artist, and how it can be, I suppose.
Yeah, it can be quite delightful, and it can be quite tragic as well.
Yes. So that's Looking for Miss Sargam by Shubha Mudgal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.